Today I'm going to be showing you a really simplified way for how to block in a human head from a couple different angles and different perspectives. This is going to build on what we've already learned, which is how to draw a full view portrait. We're going to be looking primarily at some different angles of what's called a 3/4 view. So today I have a little model I'm going to show you. So we have learned in a full view portrait that face is looking directly at you, and we have what is called the line of symmetry that runs straight up and down from the chin to the top of the head. But today I want us to experiment with learning how to draw that head from different angles as it turns to the side for a 3/4 view. If you notice, that line of symmetry is no longer a straight line right in the middle of the head, but it actually curves as it wraps around the back of the head there. And we're going to take a look at a couple of those different angles. We might look at a head tilted downward. We might look at a head tilted up. This is going to work from lots of different perspectives. Now there are a lot of really great tutorials online that are going to go into a lot more depth than what I'm going to show you today. Mine is going to be super simple and break down the information as much as possible, just so I don't overwhelm you and give you too much information at once. So I'm going to leave our little model right here with his head turned just a little bit to the left, and he's going to kind of be my guide as I walk you through drawing in your first one. Now at the top of your page, if you would, label your sketchbook paper your head studies and put your name at the top. And we're going to be drawing a series of several little small drawings on this page, so don't draw too big, but not too small either. I'm going to work maybe with about 2-3-inch tall heads. So to start, I'm going to look at what's called the cranial mass of the head. If you think about the skull, this portion of the skull, we can visualize this as a circle, and then we'll be learning how to add in the lower jaw bone portion for this drawing. Very, very lightly, I'm just going to create a little circle. I want this to be extremely light, and I'm moving my arm, going around lots of times just to help me find a nice even circle. Today we're going to try to avoid erasing as we go. We can leave some of those extra lines there, that's totally fine. And just note, sort of as I found that circle, I just went a little bit darker, just to help make the one circle stand out a little bit more. Now we do want to make sure that this is a circle and not an oval at this point. So you can do a quick spot check the width and check the height and make sure they're about even. Then very, very lightly divide that circle in half vertically and in half horizontally. That should give you 4 even quarters. And that can also help you see if you've got a circle, if all those pie slices are the same size. With this half mark here, we're going to visualize this edge and this edge, and we're going to sort of view this as a little bit like a globe, and we're going to create from here to here a very, very flat elliptical shape like the equator on the Earth. So I'm just going really slow, trying to hit those 2 side markers, and as flat as I can make this little oval. I don't want it to have sharp pointy corners, but just a nice, very flat little oval. That's what I want to make first. Now, this line will ultimately become the brow line on our portrait. So I'm going to leave the front of that ellipse or oval, but I'm going to erase the back part of it. So this top portion I can get rid of. And now I'm just left with seeing how this oval wraps around our cranial mass or our little globe. Now with our vertical line, we have the bottom and the top of that vertical line. This time I'm going to create an oval, but instead of it being very, very thin, I'm going to widen it out more. Starting really lightly, trying to make sure I hit those 2 marks. Now the wider I make this oval, the more to the side my person is going to look. Because this line is going to start to represent that line of symmetry. Now once I've got a pretty decent looking oval there on the inside, it sort of looks a little bit like a beach ball at the moment, I am only going to be needing to keep 1/4 of that. So if I think about my head, this curvature is moving in that direction. So in this model, I'm going to keep this portion, but erase the other 3. Now I've got a good sense of the start of that line of symmetry wrapping over the head and coming down to what's going to in the future become the brow line. When this line hits the middle, I'm going to, instead of continuing to curve it down, I'm just going to straighten that line out and make a vertical parallel to this vertical line here. But I'm going to drop it down a little past my circle. So that way this line of symmetry is going to curve around the head and then drop down straight vertical. So this is going to be coming down to here, and we need to figure out how long to make that chin. Now, to make your lives really, really simple, there are some very specific ways to do this, but just for simplicity's sake, this half measurement here, I'm going to take that half measurement and go even shorter. Let's see, that half will be down to about there. I'm going to move that up a little ways to about there. So we're not going to get too specific with that measurement, but just a little less than half of the circle. And this is going to represent where our chin length is going to come. Now, since the head is turned over here to the left, the chin and the whole face on this side is becoming foreshortened, so we'll see a little bit less of the chin on the left and a little bit more of the chin on the right. So we're off to a really good start. We've got a basic structure. Now what we can do is finish the left side of the face. The head is going to curve down, but instead of curving and tucking under to the bottom of the circle or the cranial mass, we're going to bring this line down and curve it into the chin. Not right at the center point, we want to give it a little bit of width for the width of the chin. This is going to start to complete our basic egghead shape from a 3/4 perspective. Now we're going to figure out a couple of the basic proportions for where the eyes, nose, and mouth level goes. This line, as it wraps around the head, is representative of the eyebrow level, but we're going to look at the top of the head to the bottom of the chin and divide it in half. I'm going to guesstimate and say about right there. You can measure that with your pencil as well. About right there is where the eye level is going to be for my person. I'm going to give this a little bit of a curve to it, the same kind of parallel curve that this has, because it's wrapping around that curved head. Now from the eye level to the chin, which is half of the whole head, I'm going to take that and divide it into thirds from here to here, 3 even parts. So from the eye level to the chin, thirds would be about there. And again, I'm going to give those a little bit of a curve too. This is going to represent the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the lips to start filling in our facial features. Now once we've got this blocked in, we're going to use these measurements to help us figure out the right side of our face and the ears and all of that. So we're going to take our eye level, and as it wraps around the head, remember to sort of give everything that little curve. That's going to be where we start our ears, and we know that our ears come down to the bottom of the nose. So I'm going to very lightly wrap that around the head, and that will be the bottom of our ears. So I'm gonna place those. They usually come up. They start at the eye level, thereabouts, come up to about the eyebrows, and then come down to the bottom of the nose. Now everybody's ear shapes are different. That's just a really generic version, but just to sort of give you an idea. And once we have that ear in place, that's then gonna let us know where from that ear, our jawline drops down and then curves and comes in. Now remember I said we want a little bit more width of the chin here than we do here. So I want to just bring that in and connect to my chin about there. That gives us a really simple, basic way of blocking in the head without taking too much time to measure too many things. Now, we don't want to obviously have just a floating head, so we're going to add in the neck. And I always like to start from the curve of this cranial mass. And you can feel this on yourself if you touch the back of your head, where this starts to curve in, kind of behind your ear. It then starts to curve down for the back of your neck. And then the front of your neck is really, you can sort of just play with it and see. I like to look to see where the neck is intersecting the chin or the jawbone area. You know, depending on the person's neck, you know, if they have a super skinny neck, you might see it over here. If they have a wider neck, you might see it more here. And a lot of that also depends on the angle. Sometimes you'll even see it coming out from this other side. Depends on the angle with which they're holding their head as well. So I'm just going to create what I think looks about right and let that start to curve out and down into my shoulders. And that's a really basic 3/4 view portrait. Again, we're going to start with our circle. Very lightly divide it in half. Start with my very flat ellipse, as flat as I can make it. Erase the top back portion of it, and now I'm left with the front. You really want to make sure that you give it the illusion that it curves around those edges. Now, for the vertical ellipse, I'm going to find my wider circle. Maybe I'll turn his head just a little bit more to the side to give it a little bit more of a dramatic tilt. I'm going to make a wider oval this time in that case. And I'm resting my hand on my paper just to help steady myself as I draw this. And now, since his head is going in this direction, we're going to keep this part of that ellipse and then erase those three. Now, once we have this section, we've got our line of symmetry wrapping around the front of the head, and here, keeping it parallel with this vertical line, from this midpoint down, I'm going to drop down a vertical. Now the length of that vertical, just remember, half of my circle, I'm going to go a little bit less than half. So that height, and then just a little bit less, I'm going to say about right there. Now, and that is something too that you can adjust. A lot of times I don't take the time to precisely measure all that out every single time. I just sort of guesstimate it and just say, about there. So there's going to be the bottom of this chin. This time we'll see less of the right side and more of the left side. Now that we have that, we're going to find from the top of our head to the bottom of our chin, we're going to find the midpoint. About there. Looks pretty close. That will be my eye level. And then from my eye level down to the chin, divide that into thirds. 1, 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3 even sections. This will be the bottom of the nose, bottom of the mouth. And we see a lot less of this right-hand side this time. But I'm going to connect and draw in that right side of the face. Now, to figure out the ear structure, wrap that eye around that sphere, the cranial mass. Wrap that nose line around as well. And blocking in that ear from about there to the bottom of the nose, coming up to the brow line and down, and then blocking in the chin from below the ear, and then angling it in. Now to finish out the back of the head, where the back of the head curves around, it's going to drop down into the neck, and we'll see the neck and shoulders begin somewhere there. Now, if you want to add a t-shirt collar, you can view the neck sort of as an elliptical oval shape as well. See how a t-shirt collar would look.